I don't know about you, but I've got that feeling again. That mix of pride, curiosity, and just a little bit of tension in my chest. Because right now, something is shifting inside this Red Sox team. And it's not just one story, it's two. And somehow, they feel connected. On one side, we've got a guy inside that clubhouse who just drew a line in the sand about what he wants his future in Boston to look like. Not in a selfish way, not about money, not about stats, about something way bigger. And when I heard what was said, I'll be honest, it fired me up. But at the same time, there's trade noise starting to build around this roster. Real noise. The kind of rumors that make you look at the depth chart and think, wait, are we about to make a move? A contender-type move? Or a calculated gamble? Spring training is rolling, expectations are rising, and the front office is clearly thinking long-term. And when you put these two developments side by side, you start to realize this isn't random. This is about direction, about identity, about what this team believes it can be in 2026. And trust me, what was said and what's being discussed behind the scenes matters more than it looks on the surface. Before we dive into it, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button if you live and breathe Red Sox baseball like I do. Subscribe to Red Sox Today if you're new here. This channel is brand new. We're chasing our first 1,000 subscribers. And if you're a real Sox fan who wants honest takes from someone who feels every win and every loss, you're in the right place. Now let's talk about what just happened. Because what happened with Carlos Narvaez is not just a feel-good spring training story. This is a statement about who this team is becoming. Last year, when the Red Sox brought in Carlos Narvaez before the 2025 season, nobody outside the diehards really moved. Let's be honest. On paper, it didn't feel like a headline move. We all assumed Connor Wong was the starter. Narvaez was fighting for that number 2 spot. Depth, insurance, that was the vibe. Then spring happened. He won the backup job. Still, nobody was talking about him as a difference maker. And then Wong got hurt. And that's where everything changed. Narvaez didn't just fill in. He took over. He grabbed the number 1 catcher role and never looked back. In 118 games, he slashed .241, .306, .419, hit 15 home runs, drove in 50 runs, and ripped 27 doubles. And don't forget, he finished 6th in American League Rookie of the Year voting. 6th. As a guy who wasn't even supposed to start the year as the main catcher. That's not luck. That's seizing your moment. Now fast forward to this spring training. Full swing. Expectations higher. And Alex Cora came out and said it plainly. He earned the right to be the starter. That matters. Cora didn't say, "We'll see." He didn't say, "Competition." He said Narvaez earned it. And then Narvaez himself said something that, as a fan, I absolutely love. He made it clear the goal isn't personal milestones. It's not contract talk. It's not individual awards. He said the goal is a World Series ring this year. That's a hard stance. That's a guy planting his flag in Boston. He even acknowledged that personal achievements and future things will come if they come. But right now, the only focus is winning it all. That's the mentality you want from your starting catcher. The guy who handles the pitching staff. The guy who sets the tone defensively. The guy who lives in the game every single pitch. And let's talk about the bigger picture. The Red Sox struck gold with this move. Seriously. Finding a starting catcher who can give you power, durability, and clubhouse mindset like that? That's not easy in today's game. And he did it in his first real opportunity. For a team trying to push forward, that stability behind the plate is huge, especially when you've got a rotation full of established arms and young pitchers pushing up from the system. A steady catcher changes everything: pitch sequencing, confidence, game flow. And emotionally, it feels different. It feels like this team isn't just hoping to compete. It feels like there's belief building inside that clubhouse. But here's where things get interesting. Because while Narvaez is locking himself into that starting role and talking about winning rings in Boston, there's another part of this roster that's suddenly being talked about in a very different way. And this one involves trade rumors, rotation depth, and a team in the National League that might be calling. And if what's being floated actually gains traction, it could reshape more than just one position on this roster. Let's talk about that next, because now we're stepping into the part of the conversation that makes you sit back and really think. Trade talk. As the 2026 season approaches, league chatter is starting to connect the Boston Red Sox with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the name being floated? Brayan Bello. Now, before anybody panics, there is no sign a deal is close. Nothing is imminent. But insiders like Christopher Klein from Fansided are pointing out something that actually makes sense when you look at both rosters. Let's start with Pittsburgh. The Pirates are building around Paul Skeens, and what a year he had. In 2025, at 23 years old, he threw 187, 2 innings, posted a 1.97 ERA, best in the majors, struck out around 10.4 per 9, walked just about 2 per 9, finished with a whip under 1 at 0. On 95 and put up an estimated WAR north of 7.5. That's ace of the ace stuff. But after him, they've got Mitch Keller, Bubba Chandler, prospect Braxton Ashcraft, and Jared Jones working back from rehab. Solid pieces. But not a proven, stabilizing middle-of-the-rotation arm they can fully lean on. And that's where Brayan Bello comes in. Bello is 26. In 2025, he threw 166, 2 innings, 11 wins, 9 losses, a 3.35 ERA. Strikeout rate of 6.7 per 9. Not overpowering, about 3 walks per 9, a 1. 24 whip, and an estimated WAR around 3. Not flashy, but durable, reliable. He takes the ball every 5th day. That matters. Now look at Boston's side. This is where it gets real interesting. The Red Sox rotation right now includes Garrett Crochet, Ranger Suarez, Sonny Gray, Brayan Bello, and Johan Oviedo. On top of that, you've got prospects Peyton Tole and Connolly Early pushing for spots. That's depth, real depth. And when you have that kind of depth, you have flexibility. One proposed framework floating around would send Bello to the Pirates in exchange for outfield prospect Edward Florentino, right-handed pitching prospect Seth Hernandez, plus cash considerations to help offset salary. Florentino is ranked number 3 in Pittsburgh's system. Hernandez is number 4. And importantly, Pittsburgh would keep their top prospects like Connor Griffin and Bubba Chandler. Financially, Bello is owed less than $10 million per year through 2029, with a $21 million club option for 2030. That's cost-controlled pitching for multiple seasons, extremely valuable in today's market. For Pittsburgh, Bello likely slots in as their number 2 behind Skeens. That takes pressure off the young guys and gives them rotation stability as they try to compete in the NL Central. Remember, they finished 71 and 91 in 2025. They need structure. They need innings. For Boston, it's about asset management. Florentino brings speed and a strong arm in the outfield. Hernandez offers long-term upside on the mound. And you free up payroll space while still keeping a strong major league rotation. But let's be honest here as Red Sox fans. There's risk. Bello's strikeout rate last year was just 17.7%. His expected ERA sat at 4.52, which suggests some regression risk. He also benefited from a 268 BABIP that might not repeat. If that number climbs, things could look different. On the flip side, you're trading a pitcher who just gave you 166 innings, and in today's game, that's gold for prospects who haven't touched the majors yet. That's the gamble. So who benefits most? Honestly, Pittsburgh might. Pairing a durable 26-year-old starter with Paul Skeens could reshape that rotation overnight. It would tighten the NL Central race immediately. But Boston's pitching depth lowers the risk on our side. If Crochet, Suarez, Gray, and Oviedo stay healthy, and if Tole or Early break through, we can afford to deal from strength. And here's the emotional part for me. This is the kind of conversation contenders have. Not, who are we selling at the deadline? It's, how do we optimize the roster long-term without losing our competitive edge? That's a different energy. And when you connect this with what Narvaez said earlier about the goal being a World Series ring this year, you start to see the bigger picture. This front office believes the window is open. The question is, how aggressive do they want to be to shape it? And that brings us to the bigger takeaway from both of these developments, because together, they tell us something very important about where this team is headed. Let's wrap this up. When you put these two stories side by side, it tells you everything about where this team is mentally right now. On one hand, you've got Carlos Narvaez, a guy who wasn't even supposed to be the starter last year, stepping up, earning the job, finishing 6th in Rookie of the Year voting, and now openly saying the goal is a World Series ring this season. Not development, not, let's see where we are in a couple of years. A ring. This year. That's urgency. On the other hand, you've got legitimate trade conversations floating around involving Brayan Bello. Not because the Red Sox are desperate, but because they have depth, because they have options, because they're in a position where they can think strategically instead of scrambling. That's strength. And when you combine urgency with strength, that's when things get serious. Narvaez locking down the catcher position gives this team stability behind the plate. That helps every single pitcher on the roster. Crochet, Suarez, Gray, Oviedo, Bello, and even the young arms pushing for a shot. Meanwhile, the possibility of flipping a controlled, durable starter like Bello for high-end prospects shows the front office is thinking long-term without waving the white flag on the present. This isn't a rebuilding team. This isn't a confused team. This feels like a decisive team. Now, does that mean trading Bello is the right move? Not automatically. There's real risk there. 166 innings of 3.35 ERA baseball doesn't grow on trees. But having the ability to even consider it without weakening the rotation, that says something about where this roster stands. To me, the overall picture leans positive. Not reckless optimism, not blind hype, but confident. There's identity forming here. A catcher who's all in on winning. A rotation with real depth. A front office that has leverage. That's not chaos. That's direction. And as a fan who watches every pitch, every lineup card, every rumor, I'd rather be in this position than hoping for miracles. Now I want to hear from you. Would you trade Brayan Bello if the return is Edward Florentino and Seth Hernandez? Or are you keeping the proven innings and riding with the depth we already have? If you're enjoying this kind of honest, real Sox talk, hit that like button. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if you're new here, subscribe to Red Sox Today. We're just getting started. We're chasing our first 1,000 subscribers. And if you're a true Red Sox fan who wants opinions from someone who actually feels this team, you're part of this with us. Let's see where this season takes us. Go Sox!